I would like to invite our next facilitator, Dr. Beloo Mehra. Dr. Beloo Mehra currently serves as Director of BhāratShakti, an institute of Sri Aurobindo Society dedicated to research and program development in areas related to Indian culture. A former professor of education at an American university for more than 15 years, now she has devoted herself to the field of Sri Aurobindo studies as a student, researcher, writer, educator, program designer, curator, and editor. She writes for several publications and speaks regularly at various platforms on topics related to integral education, Indian culture, social cultural evolution, and integral yoga. She has also developed and taught several semester length courses in these areas and has curated several workshops and seminars for university students in India and the US. Dr. Mehra is also the founder editor of Renaissance, the monthly online journal of Sri Aurobindo Society. Her recent books include Antar Yatra, Soul Journeys, Indian Literary Tradition in the Light of Sri Aurobindo, Understanding Contemporary India in the Light of Sri Aurobindo, The Spiritual Foundations of Indian Culture, and Towards a New Renaissance, Cultivating Soul Values. So please welcome Dr. Beloo Mehra. Today your topic is Durga, the Devi of India.
Thank you. Thank you, Biswajita, for the kind introduction. And thank you, Charanji and Lakshmi Jyotiji, to really start us off on this beautiful gathering, in this beautiful invocation that we are offering at the feet of the Divine Mother, Durga. So I chose to talk about this idea of Durga, the Devi of India. And my job has been really made easier by many references and many points that were mentioned both by Lakshmi Jyoti ji and also Charan Singh ji. So I'm going to still build up a little bit about on the points that they already brought in. So one of the first things that we recognize is how Sri Aurobindo tells us at so many places, right from his revolutionary times, the writings from his revolutionary times, to much later to his conversations, where he emphasizes the truth that a nation has to be understood not only with its outer characteristics, that its land, its people, the resources, or even what we speak of as culture, but rather the true truth of a nation as a psychological entity, as a group entity, is in its soul, which Sri Aurobindo speaks of as the nation soul, which is its true genius, its true that gives a nation its true inner swabhava, and hence determining its swadharma in many ways. Each nation, he further emphasizes, is a godhead, a power, and adding to it, each nation has a Devi or a Devata, some sort of a godhead figure, which supports its separate existence, its collective being. Then in a letter, he reminds us that these beings, why we don't even think of these beings is because these are, it's so natural for us to confine our understanding, confine our vision to our individual or even collective, national or racial, community-based group consciousness. But these beings that are the ones that are really determining the soul of a nation, Sri Aurobindo says, are as real and even more permanently real than the human beings, than the people that they influence. And they belong to this higher plane. So guided by this, I want to explore the idea how we can begin to understand Durga as the Devi or the Devata that supports the separate existence, the separate national consciousness, national being of India. So there is one conversation we find from 1926. It's dated 18th June, 1926, when a disciple was asking Sri Aurobindo if it is true that there are some sort of cosmic beings behind the collective units like a nagar, a nation, or nagar devata. So Sri Aurobindo there very categorically says, yes, that is what you could call as the national devata or national shakti. And the disciple probes further, is there such a being behind India? Sri Aurobindo's reply was, yes, one word. The disciple wasn't satisfied. He asked two questions, or maybe there were two different disciples asking two questions, one after another. Is it possible to come in contact with this Devi or Devata that is behind India? And the next question is it possible to know the future of a nation by coming in contact with this national Shakti or the national Devata? To the first question, Sri Aurobindo's reply was yes. It is possible to know and to come in contact with it. Right there, we have the indication of a national yoga. Through a national yoga, one could come in contact with the Devata of the nation's soul, the Devata of the nation. But then to the second question, is it possible to know the future of a nation by coming close to this national Devata? His reply was, I don't think the future is known that way. But the disciple still wasn't satisfied. The question that came to Sri Aurobindo next was, does it in any way shape the future of the nation? This coming in contact with the Devata, or the fact that there is a Devi or a Devata supporting the being of a nation. Sri Aurobindo replied, and I read it verbatim. He said, it has a part to play in it. It controls some of the forces that act. The disciple asked further, is this being something more than the aggregate consciousness? Sri Aurobindo. This is very interesting. So I want to read this again in verbatim. His reply was, it has the aggregate consciousness. That is, the national Devata has the aggregate consciousness, and it also has an individualized consciousness of its own. It is not the determining deity or the Adhishtata Devata in the sense that it entirely shapes the future, but it in a way represents the racial, the national soul. So all the description that we have heard in Lakshmi Jyoti's beautiful narration of the incarnation of Ma Durga, the various levels of descent from the Aditi Sachidananda to the overmental gods and further below, we get the sense that in what way Ma Durga has the characteristics that have power to determine in some way. It's not determining the future, but determining the forces, or shapes the forces, or control the forces that are acting on India's journey. So this is what I would like to explore a little bit, how we may begin to see Durga as the Devi representing the national soul of India. And how do we invoke Ma Durga's force as we progress on this journey to become true servitors of Mother India? So again, as Lakshmi Jyoti was briefly telling us, and in the introduction, I also mentioned a little bit about the 4 powers or 4 aspects of the mother that Sri Aurobindo speaks of in his little book, The Mother. These are the powers or the aspects which stand in front and guide the universe and engage with the terrestrial plane. So we all know these 4 names: Maheshwari, Mahakali, Mahalakshmi, and Mahasaraswati, or the English terms for that would be wisdom for Maheshwari, and strength or courage or force for Mahakali, harmony and beauty for Mahalakshmi, and the perfection in detailed organization for Mahasaraswati. And again, reminding us what Lakshmi Jyoti again said, how Sri Aurobindo explains that Durga is the manifestation which combines the characteristics of Maheshwari and Mahakali. So this is where we begin to understand that how the force, the power, or the aspect of the Divine Mother, that is Maheshwari, the wisdom, and the strength, the force, the courage aspect, coming together in Ma Durga can represent the nation soul that is India. Now, we have to keep in mind that all these manifestations are in some way limited, or as the word Sri Aurobindo uses, is defined and hence more seizable. These are, in that sense, defined emanations or embodiments of the supreme force of the mother, the supreme consciousness of the mother, and thus have a limited sphere of action. But it does not, at the same time, we are not saying, it does not mean that when we evoke the presence or blessings of any of the specific forms or manifestations of the Supreme Mother, we are invoking only a limited power. Because this is where I think Sri Aurobindo's analysis and his explanation comes in so helpful for us, because he speaks that behind each of these limited forms is the infinite supreme conscious being herself, or her force herself, and someone who has, in even in a very limited way, um, brought within the sense of Indian heart or an Indian soul or an Indian way to understand these um, spiritual truths, or to even accept what the great spiritual masters, our sages and seers, what have spoken of the great spiritual truths of the gradations that are there. That person would know that behind the limited form that he or she is adoring, invoking, worshipping, there is the infinite supreme being herself, the supreme force herself. So invoking a limited form does not mean that we are invoking limited power. So Durga as the national Shakti of India would imply that India's intrinsic innate genius, her swabhava, her nation's soul, is that of the personalities of Maheshwari and Mahakali. Now, Maheshwari or wisdom is the power which has, again, invoking Sri Aurobindo's words here, these characteristics. It's a personality of calm wideness, comprehending wisdom, tranquil benevolence, inexhaustible compassion, supreme and all ruling greatness and majesty. I'm just picking up a few words here. And I think if we were to just objectively look at the trajectory, the evolutionary trajectory of India, we would find that if there's any one place in the world where the pursuit of widest, highest, deepest knowledge and wisdom has happened continuously for many, many millennia in an almost unbroken chain, where we see knowledge building upon knowledge, knowledge of one truth, Ekam Sat, being pursued in all its diverse multiplicities, so that one could gain a wider and all comprehending and all comprehensive grasp of the truth. That place would be India, Bharat. So it's no wonder really that all those to this day who are seeking great and the greatest and the highest, the ultimate knowledge, the ultimate truth, turn to India. Now, the other is the power of Mahakali, the strength. That embodies the divine Supreme Mother's power of splendid strength and irresistible passion, her warrior mood, her overwhelming will, her swiftness, her impetuous swiftness, the swift action that even Lakshmi Jyoti was talking about, and the world-shaking force with which she gives an impetus to progress. Again, looking back at India's civilizational march, we would know that India has not only produced these great rishis and sages and the great spiritual adepts and masters, philosophers, thinkers, and religious giants, the bhakta poets and all that. But there has also been never any shortage of the great rulers, statesmen, soldiers, administrators. In fact, our history, our itihasas, our Puranas, our Shastras are full of stories of the greatest warriors, the greatest political thinkers and strategists. And I think if we were to be candid, on the top of the chart would be Sri Krishna himself as the greatest statesman and political strategist. So what's really important, however, to note here is that India also recognized that the first value of a culture is in its power to enlarge and uplift and elevate the internal um, being of the man, the internal man, which is the soul, the mind, the spirit. But the soundness of that act is not complete, or the soundness of a culture would not be complete, or a civilization would not be complete until there is also a shaping of the external existence of the individual, both individual and collective, and has somehow made, uh, has been able to generate certain life rhythms which could allow the individual and the collective to advance towards the highest and the greatest ideals that the culture would put before him. So this was the true understanding of progress that we have inherited from our great sages and seers and thinkers in India. This recognition of the need for a sound outer life, which would include the political, economic, and social life with its own power and efficiency, which could enable the individual in the nation and in the individual in the collective life to not only merely survive, but to grow and with some sort of a great sense of security and nobility move towards perfection, both individually and collectively. So this idea of pursuing of the higher knowledge, which is the work of the Maheshwari, and also creating an outer life, which would be the work of the great, statesmen or rulers or organizers of the outer life. We have there has been sort of an acceptance of the synthesis of these two powers in our own historical march. We see that, and wherever any culture or any civilization fails to meet both these ends together, our thinkers have also spoken of that that's an incomplete or a non-whole application of the idea. There is one sentence of Sri Aurobindo which I would like to bring up here in this context, where he says that a nation tends to throw out its most vivid types in that line of action which is most congenial to its temperament, the swabhava, and is also expressive of its leading idea. So that's the leading idea that I was just referring to, the leading idea of what would be the true sense of progress. And then in the same description, he says something very beautiful and very profound and very relevant for our purpose here, where he says, what are the vivid types that India has thrown out? The Rishi in ancient India was the outstanding figure with the hero just behind. So there again, we have the power of Maheshwari and Mahakali. The Maheshwari as in expressed through Rishi, the one who is in the pursuit of highest truths, and the Mahakali, the hero warrior. So again, another way to understand these two powers would be what we see as the soul powers that we find discussed again and again in various writings of Sri Aurobindo, particularly in Synthesis of Yoga as well, where he speaks of the soul powers of the Brahmin and Kshatriya. Brahmin's soul power would be the one who is in this constant quest of a deepest, highest, ultimate truth, not merely as a book knowledge or a theoretical knowledge, but to live that knowledge, to practice that, as Charan Singh ji was also talking about, to to kind of fulfill God in life, to fulfill that ultimate truth in life. And the Kshatriya soul power would be of the one who would dare, who would have the audacity. And again, reminding ourselves of what Charan Singh ji's last comment, the last few lines that he was reading about, who would have the daring to even surrender to the force of mother. That again is the Mahakali. It needs that daring audacity in the right sense of the word to master life, to surrender, to boldly and courageously face whatever life throws at us. So this synthesis of Brahma Tej and Kshatriya Tej has been responsible, I guess we can say, in some ways to, for the glory that India's civilization, India's culture has been about. And that is exactly what we need moving forward. So the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of highest knowledge is not the work of a fearful, a weak personality. So when we think of the master key of Indian mind, or the innate genius of Indian mind, when we say it is her spirituality, that is true, but that's only one half of the truth. The other half would be that this spirituality can only thrive or blossom or express itself, manifest itself in life when it meets the Kshatriya Tej, the fearless courage and the bold audacity to fight the battles, both inner and outer, as we walk on the path. Now, when we think of this battle between Ma Durga and the Asura, we know how the story ends, that it's the Durga mastering the Asura. But what does it essentially mean? Now, here I want to bring up a conversation of the mother from 1962, actually, where she revealed of her own realization of her work as Durga. And I think Lakshmi Jyoti also talked about this, where around every Durga Puja, she would, she would find that some or the other Asura has been vanquished. And only later she would recognize that, this happened around the Durga Puja day, and the day that is known in the ashram as the victory day. But one other thing that I think I would just add to what Lakshmi Jyoti was sharing earlier, that the mother explained in this conversation that by mastering the Asura, by vanquishing the Asura, it's not that the adverse force, which is what we refer to as the Asura, would become totally ineffective. The uprooting that she would speak of that happened around Durga Puja day, it would simply mean that the source from where the adverse force is arising was dried up. But the force would have already spread out various emanations. So just as the divine force, the divine has several emanations, the Asura also sends out several emanations and forces out in the world, and those will continue to do the work. So there is the work of the Asura is still going on, and that is why every year Durga has to return to fight the battle again, because these emanations that are out there continue to create havoc. Ultimately, as long as these Asuras, and again, I think Lakshmi Jyoti mentioned about some example, one of the main works that these Asuras or these adverse forces do is to test the sincerity of the sadhak, of the aspirant, or in this case, the aspirant who is trying to connect with the soul of India, connect with the soul of Bharat. So the ultimate work would be to master the lower nature. And that's what the adverse forces in the form of lower nature come up again and again. So that battle has to happen every time. And hence Durga would return every year to do her work, both within and without. And that's the annual celebration, which we see, or which is kind of re-telecast or reenacted in the form of Durga Puja or the Navaratri, is a reminder of this yoga, this tapasya that we must do individually, but also the tapasya of the nation, the national yoga of which we are all a part. Now, interestingly, there is one other conversation of the mother where, and this happened during the Second World War time in 1941, where she said about how the divine's protection works. And she makes it very clear that there are sections of people and forces in India that have been acting in such a way which invite Asuric influences, the adverse forces upon her, upon India. And those are the reasons that it becomes even more difficult for the divine protection to work. Why I bring it up? Because Durga also symbolizes the divine mother's force of protection. So as we individually and collectively as a nation try to contact, try to come close to the soul of Bharat, the national soul, the Devi that is, supporting this in the collective being of Bharat. There will be adverse forces obstructing our way, blocking our way. And for us to invoke Divine Mother's protection, this key that Mother gives in 1941 conversation has answers as to what would be the conditions under which we can walk the path in with the grace of divine protection working upon us. So in that conversation, which was happening, as I said, during the Second World War, she gave example of the outer adverse forces also, which meant those who were supporting the Nazi forces. But it is the inner psychological conditions which she spoke of that's fundamental to our understanding. And if we can fulfill those as part of our sadhana as Bharatiya, inwardly and outwardly as a collective, we can be assured of the divine's protection. So let me just read out what she said are the fundamental psychological conditions which must be fulfilled for Divine Mother's protection as we invoke the Durga as Devi of India. These are her words, the divine can give protection only to those who are wholeheartedly faithful to the divine, who live truly in the spirit of sadhana and keep their consciousness and preoccupation fixed upon the divine and the service of the divine. This is the core work of a Bharatiya soul, wholeheartedly faithful to the divine, live in the spirit of sadhana, and keep our consciousness and preoccupation fixed upon the divine and the service of the divine. Sanatan Dharma is the only politics, Sri Aurobindo reminded. So this is another way of putting that. And when I say the word Sanatan Dharma, I say in its widest, largest, highest understanding, which is the sense which Sri Aurobindo was invoking when he said that, when he gave that statement. Coming back to Mother's words, what are the things, the psychological conditions that we must fulfill? She adds this also. Desire, for example, insistence on one's likes and conveniences, all movements of hypocrisy, insincerity, and falsehood are great obstacles standing in the way of the divine's protection. So these are the things that we must give up if we want to be assured of the divine's protection and as part of the national sadhana that we must do. Movements of hypocrisy, insincerity, falsehood, desire, and insistence on our own conveniences, our own likes. So what I find this beautiful passage, this conversation reminds us so emphatically is of the inner work that we must do as the children of Ma Bharati. This requires to develop an ability of discernment, a wisdom to know what kind of influences or forces, because these adverse forces, these asuric forces are very much out there. What forces we must align ourselves with, what influences we should allow to come within our consciousness if we want to remain within divine's protection. That cultivation of that wide, vast, deep wisdom would be the work of Maheshwari. And then, of course, would come the work of Mahakali, the warrior mood of the mother. Because again, because all kinds of influences out there, there has to be a battle within. And again, around the same Second World War, these conversations of mother are so telling, where in another conversation in the context of Second World War itself, and Ashram's role and her role, because remember, Sri Aurobindo said this is mother's war. Simply, categorically, he said. So their mother gives us, again, another beautiful key, how to be a sadhak of Ma Bharati, the Durga of Ma Bharati. So she says, and let me just read her own words, to be a successful instrument for the asuric forces is easy. We can just meditate on this and see to what extent so many of our own countrymen, our fellow countrymen and women have become instruments of Asuric forces. To be a successful instrument for the Asuric forces is easy because they take all the movements of your lower nature and make use of them so that you have no spiritual effort to make. On the contrary, if you are to be a fit instrument of the divine force, you must make yourself perfectly pure. Since it is only in an integrally divinized instrument that the divine force will have its full power and effect. So as we try to know more of the truth of Bharat, more of the truth of the collective being of the Bharat, the collective soul, the nation soul of Bharat, we also need to have this discernment which kind of forces we are giving ourselves to. Are we becoming an instrument for the Asuric forces? Or are we becoming a fit instrument of the divine force? Because both these forces are acting, shaping in some ways the outer and inner life of India. So the battle will go on, the discernment has to happen within, the war has to happen within, the great big battle within each one of us, within the Indian collective self. And the divine force must win if India, as Sri Aurobindo says, and as Charan Singh ji also reminded, if India's destined work is to lead the world on the path of the spirit. So the moment we utter these words, Ma Durga or Jai Ma Durga, we have this vision, this image of her beautiful form seated on a lion. And I was happy when Lakshmi Jyoti read out that description that Sri Aurobindo gives of the inner meaning of this form, where the Durga's form seated on the lion represents the mastery of the physical, vital, and material force. The lion itself becomes the divinized physical. The lion is the symbol of courage, force, vital force, as Sri Aurobindo says. But when Durga rides on it, when Durga masters it, she's acting in the world through this divinized vital material force. And here again, I would like to invoke one other conversation of the mother, which happened in 1969, where again we get beautiful revelation of Durga's work as Durga for India, for the world, for the humanity. So this disciple in that conversation asked the mother, does Durga's lion represent the power of the divine over the adverse forces? Look at how mother replied this. She said, yes, it can be understood in that way. And then comes the revelation. Very powerful, very beautiful. Her work as Durga. And she said this, but in the vital, there is a lion, very much alive, who is very often near me and who several people have often seen. So right there, we have the mother as Durga, who is very often near me and who several people have often seen. And then she says, this is obviously not an animal though. And this is not obviously an animal, though its form has an animal appearance, symbolic of its royal strength. So just as I kind of read aloud these words of the mother, I find this great delight, how she reveals her Durga form in her own words when she speaks of this lion near her, which many people have seen. So I want to kind of just maybe make two quick points. That one, when I'm sort of focusing on Durga as the Devi of India, I am not in any way suggesting that the other two aspects of the Divine Mother, that of Mahalakshmi or Mahasaraswati, are not important for the full manifestation of India's innate swabhava, her inner genius, her nation soul. In fact, the great mantric poem that we have, Vande Mataram, penned by Rishi Bankim, we have the idea of Ma Bharati depicted as Durga, Lakshmi, and Saraswati together. And that's what Sri Aurobindo also translated. Thou art Durga, lady and queen, with her hands that strike and her swords of sheen. Thou art Lakshmi, lotus throned, and the muse 100-toned. It goes on. So just in the interest of time, I'm not reading the full stanza. Then the other example that we also find how by invoking Bhavani or Durga form, we are not necessarily saying that the other aspects of the mother are not needed. Sri Aurobindo, in his own 1905 Sanskrit poem, invokes both Bhavani and Bharati together when he gives the title to that poem, where, and as we know, Bhavani and Bharati are just two different names for Durga and Saraswati together. So essentially, all these emanations, all these powers and the emanations of these powers, the four powers, must work together, because that would be the complete integral manifestation of the one supreme mother force. But today just happens to be that we are kind of, focusing on this celebration of Ma Durga as the Devi, as the divine mother, as the national Shakti in this case. And as Charan Singh ji also reminded us, the beautiful Durga Stotra that Sri Aurobindo penned. And what is interesting to note is when the English translation was being published for the first time in 1951, the translation which was done initially by Nolinida and later on had been corrected by Sri Aurobindo himself. At the time of its publication, Mother sends out a message with it, making the connection of Durga to India even more clear. She said, "This is for those who love India and wish to work for her greatness." So again, the deep connect of India's national Shakti with the force of Ma Durga is undeniable. So this is why I think in the Durga Stotra, in the hymn to Durga, we have lines where Sri Aurobindo invokes that we, the youth of India, are seated here in the temple. Listen, O Mother, descend upon earth, make thyself manifest in this land of India. And then again, the emphasis on national yoga comes right there, where he writes, India lies low in selfishness and fearfulness and littleness. Make us great, make our efforts great, our hearts vast, make us true to our resolve. May we no longer desire the small, be void of energy, given to laziness, stricken with fear. This is the yoga of a true Bharatiya, of Bharat as a collective, of the yoga of the nation. We are thy Aryan children. Develop in us again the lost teaching, the lost character, the strength of intelligence, faith, and devotion, force of austerity, power of chastity, and true knowledge. So this goes on again. These are the hints Sri Aurobindo gives. It's actually much more than hints. The straight lines of action that he has charted out for us. We have to walk the path if we truly deserve to be the Aryan children of the Divine Mother, of Ma Durga. I'll close with this one message of the Mother, which she gave on the Victory Day, which is the Durga Puja Day in 1957, where she said that if we have to express our gratitude to Sri Aurobindo, we can do nothing better than to be a living demonstration of his teaching. And today, in this context of invoking Durga as Devi of India, I want to invoke one specific teaching of Sri Aurobindo, which again was described by the Mother in a passage that she titled as a declaration. So these are important documents or important lights on the path that they have given us. And there in that declaration, she wrote, which is relevant for our purpose today, Sri Aurobindo always loved deeply his motherland, but he wished her to be a great, noble, and pure and worthy of her big mission in the world. He refused to let her sink to the sordid and vulgar level of blind self-interests and ignorant prejudices. This is why, in full conformity to his will, we lift high the standard of truth, progress, and transformation of mankind. Without caring for those who, through ignorance, stupidity, envy, or bad will, seek to soil it and drag it down into the mud. We carry it very high so that all who have a soul may see it and gather round it. So, who better than Ma Durga to guide us in this work of living and lifting high the standard of truth, progress, and transformation as we invoke Ma Bhavani, Ma Durga, and Ma Bharati today and during this festival of Durga Puja. So thank you so much. I will stop here.
Thank you, Beloo. Very nice. We all enjoyed.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now time has come to invite Mr. Narendra Murty, an award-winning author of 4 books that focus on the spiritual aspiration and man's deeper seeking. Narendra Murty specializes in writing in a style and manner that is highly readable and appeal to a wide range of audience. He creatively uses stories, anecdotes, and humor to present deeper philosophical ideas in a simple and accessible form, and hence his writing is extremely popular with the younger generation. His 37 years of passionate and dedicated studies span all religions and spiritual traditions, both Eastern and Western. He has been a sincere student of Sri Aurobindo for the last 20 years and says that after exploring almost all the philosophies and spiritual disciplines of the world, he has finally found his refuge in Sri Aurobindo. He presently volunteers as research associate at BhāratShakti, Sri Aurobindo Society, and writes every month for Renaissance, our online journal. Narendra Murty also brings strong organizational experience from his professional work as a divisional manager in the insurance industry. His upcoming book is a thoroughly researched volume which focused on symbolism in Sanatana Dharma. Today, Narendra Murty topic is selected symbolism in Devi Mahatmaya. So please welcome Mr. Narendra Murty.
Namaste. Good morning to everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. All the 3 speakers who spoke before me, they have adequately and more than adequately covered whatever there was to cover about Devi Shakti in the light of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. So my particular subject of presentation today is based on my passion of the study of symbolism in Sanatana Dharma. I have been studying this subject for a long time. And today I would actually go into the Purana, Markandeya Purana, and this Chandi, all this, our Lakshmi Jyoti ji, she mentioned about Madhukaitava Vad and Mahishasura Vad. So this whole thing about Chandi, it appears as a section of the Markandeya Purana. So it's this Chandi is a big scripture. There are 3 sections to it. Each section is divided to the killing of a particular asura or asuras rather. The first part is Madhukaitava Vad, that is the first section. The second section is Mahishasura Vad, and the third section is Shumbha Nishubha Vad. And all these 3 sections have asuras galore, the whole wide range of all kinds of asuras. Beloo ji as well as Lakshmi Jyoti ji talked about the asuric influences that are there around us. So where are the asuras? Asuras are basically all inside us. All these asuras, in fact, the time is short. So if I get some time towards the end, I'll define some of the asuras and their names. In many cases, the names of the asuras are themselves an indication of what that particular asura represents. There are our own inner weaknesses and flaws, basically. And especially Mahishasura Vad, the second section of Sri Sri Chandi or Durga Saptashati or Devi Mahatmaya. There, Mahishasura is assisted by 16 asuras. Just imagine, he has 16 assistants, so to speak. He is the captain of the team, and his team players are 16 asuras with all different names. And those verses specifically name the asuras and how Devi kills them and all that. This is section 2. And in section 3, there is Shumba Nishumba and the famous names of Rakta Bij and Chanda and Munda and all those asuras. They come in the third section. It's like I said, it's a big scripture, which itself requires a lifetime of study, and to decode the symbolism of the whole thing, because this whole scripture is nothing but symbolism. In fact, every word is a symbol which stands for something. I have chosen just 3 verses because of the paucity of time, and I'll be presenting you those 3 verses. And I'm telling you what those verses are about. But first, a few words about Mahishasura. Because this, you see, I come from Calcutta, and right now I'm speaking from Calcutta. Here, Durga Puja is celebrated in a very big way. And here, the Mahishasura Mardini aspect is worship. Durga killing the Mahishasura, the demon Mahishasura. So, who is Mahishasura and what he means? Lakshmi Jyoti talked about the tamas aspect, which also I just mentioned in the passing. Mahishasura comes from the word Mahish, which are 2 words basically. Mahi. Mahi is the earth element. And Isha. Isha is the Lord. So one who is the Lord of the Mahi element, Mahisha. That is the derivation of the word Mahisha. And he is the Asura. When that becomes an Asura, he is Mahishasura, the ruler or the lord of the earth element. Now, what is this earth element? The earth element is gross physical reality. We are spellbound by the forms of this world, the physical forms of this world. And that becomes the reality for us. We think this Jagat is Jada. It is the Jada Tattva. That is what we think because of the way the world is reported to us by our senses. We forget the reality that this world is Chaitanyamaya. This world is Satyamaya. We forget that. And we are spellbound by the material reality that we see with our senses or perceive through our senses. And this is the thraldom of Mahishasura over our consciousness, that we believe that this physical world is real. This is Mahishasura's rule over us, our consciousness. So right now, we are being ruled by Mahishasura when we think that this physical world is Jada, it is not Chaitanyamaya, it is not Satyamaya. And of course, it is Anandamaya also, because Brahman and Jagat are the same. So, even modern physics is of the opinion that the physical matter that we see is not real. Modern physics says it's energy. There's nothing called physical reality. There's nothing called matter. Everything is one, and that is energy. This is the stand of the modern physics also. That is, they came to this revelation through their own research and study. But this thraldom, thraldom of matter is the rule of Mahishasura, like I said. And Mahishasura is also tamas, extreme tamas, which is, it is sloth, inertia, heaviness, like a buffalo. Matter is like that. Physical matter is like that. It is heavy, it is inert, appears inert. Like that buffalo. Buffalo is a kind of, symbol for this kind of, this heaviness and this sloth, inertia, dullness. That is what the buffalo or the Mahisha stands for as an animal. And Devi Durga has 10 hands and she has weapons in her 10 hands. Dashabhuja, we call her Dashabhuja. And why 10 hands? Because our 5 sense organs and 5 organs of action, they come under the spell of tamas. The tamas represented by the asura. I think there's a. Can you hear some noise outside? Because you see, it's Durga Puja now. Some
Little
drums
bit.
are being played here.
Little bit.
But
Yeah.
you
Am I
go on.
audible?
It's
Yeah.
yes. You are clear. Yes. Go on, please.
So, because our 10 sense organs and 10 organs of action are dominated by the spell of Mahishasura, Durga has those 10 hands with her weapons. So, Durga is invoked, the Devi is invoked to kill. Now, Mahishasura, the story goes, Mahishasura has displaced the gods from their kingdom, and he has taken over the kingdom. And the gods go and complain to Shiva and Vishnu, and all the story is like that. And then what happens is all the gods, they kind of create the Devi's form by their combined energies. In fact, each body part of Devi comes from a particular god. Like the verses say, these are verses 9 from verse 9 to verse 17, section 2. Chapter 1, section 2, verse 9 to verse 17. These verses describe which god contributes to which body part of Devi. Like they say, the Mukhamandal is Shiva's energy. The hands of Devi are Vishnu's energy. So basically, she is the concentrated, form of all the energies of the god. Basically, she is the universal Shakti. And the gods, in their kind of own egoism, they feel that this is my energy and this is my weapon and my strength and all that. So to defeat a powerful demon like Mahishasura, the tamasic, extremely powerful demon, unless the energies are concentrated, unless we surrender our own ego-based Shaktis to the one universal Shakti and bring it all together, it is not possible to slay Mahishasura. So that is what those verses 9 to verses 17, that is what they describe. I will not go into that. And from verse 19 to verse 29 is the arming of the Devi. That is the description given, how the Devi is armed by the Devas, different Devas. Apart from the 10 arms, 10 weapons for the 10 arms, they also adorn her with a whole lot of, armor, ornaments, and earrings and all that. All that is there. So 11 verses it describes that. I have chosen 3 verses from this section of arming the Devi by the Devas, by the different gods. What it means? Basically, it means Shakti Arpan. Each Deva represents some kind of force. And the astra, the weapon of each god, is the striking force of that god, of that energy, with the weapon with which he does his work. So they give their own energies, and next they surrender, or they endow the Devi with the weapon with which they operate and function. So let's go to I'll just share 3 verses. I have not chosen much because, in fact, all those 11 verses are simply superb. Can you see the screen? Can you see the
Yes.
PPT?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
So the weapons of Devi Durga. This is the particular form that is worshipped in Bengal. So this is the first verse that I have chosen. Sri Chandi, section 2 is Mahishasura Vad, chapter 1, verse 19. Shulam Shuladvi Nishkrishya Tasya Pinakadhrik. English translation: from his trident, Shiva drew forth another and gave it to her. Basically, the endowment of the Devi by Shiva one trident is extracted from his own Trishul. And what Vishnu does is Chakram cha dattavan Krishna. Here Krishna is actually Vishnu. Samutpadya swa chakrata. And Vishnu bestowed a chakra created out from his own. So these are two very important weapons. One is chakra and one is Trishul. I've chosen 3 weapons basically and 3 other accessories that go with these weapons. Now, a little bit about Trishul and chakra. What is Trishul? Trishul is not just a random, weapon. Even a spear could have been a weapon. But Trishul is something very specific. Those 3 points, that has a very specific meaning. These I discovered during the study of my symbolism. Like I told you, it's my subject of passion. Trishul denotes something called Triputi Jnana, or the threefold knowledge. To give an example, suppose I am perceiving a tree. There are 3 things involved in it. One is the subject, that's me, who is perceiving the tree. One is the object, that is the tree itself. And there's something which connects the subject to the object, and that is the experience. Gyata, Gyeya, and Gyan. Subject, object, experience. In case of Bhoga, it is Bhojyam, Bhokta, and Bhojan. So it is this. So all the perception that we see in this world, every perception of the physical forms or whatever, even mental forms, these 3 are involved. Threefold knowledge: knower, object, and experience. So we have to go beyond this. This 3, the Triputi Jnana, has to be transcended. And the Trishul denotes that transcendence. As long as we are trapped in the Triputi Jnana, we cannot have spiritual enlightenment or liberation, or you can say Vijnana. We cannot reach the field of Vijnana. We have to go beyond the Triputi knowledge, Triputi Jnana, threefold knowledge. And there are the 3 gunas. Okay, from tamas to rajas, we have to graduate to sattva. But at one stage, even sattva has to be transcended. Trigunatita, that is what being Trigunatita means. In the Gita, Krishna says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. You should become Nistraigunya. Beyond the gunas you should go. So we have to transcend the gunas as well. Transcend even sattva also. Transcend the 3 gunas. That is why that Trishul, it denotes that transcendence. And there is, of course, the physical, vital, and mental. These 3 planes. As long as we are stuck in the aparartha, we cannot reach the level of Vijnana. So we would remain stuck at the aparartha, the lower hemisphere, which Lakshmi Jyoti ji mentioned. So that is what a Trishul means. It's not just a random weapon. Okay, now chakra. Chakra is basically the wheel of time. All our lives, the lives of every living creature, is basically consumed by the wheel of time. We have a certain, duration of life, and at the end of the life, our life is exhausted, we die. And that is the wheel of time, the chakra, operating on all living creatures. And sometimes, when because of our evil deeds, that allotted time has to be cut short by the divine, when the divine feels the need that this is becoming too much, it has to be cut short. Then actually Vishnu, what he does, he releases his chakra and he accelerates the flow of time. And time runs out and the person dies on whom the chakra is released. Like it was released on Shishupala. Krishna gave him that leeway, that 100 insults I will tolerate, not beyond that. And when that 100th insult was crossed, the chakra was released. So that is basically, chakra is the wheel of time. You can say Ayu. It is our Ayu. So we are all subject to the we are all subject to, or ultimately our destiny is death by chakra. So that is what the chakra means. It brings about destruction. Trident, it takes us to transcendence. Chakra ends, it destroys. So this verse is about chakra. Okay, now let's go to the next verse. Now here, this verse is verse 23. From the 19th verse, I have jumped to verse 23. Samasta Romkupeshu Nijarashmin Divakara. Surya, Divakara is Surya. Surya, the bringer of the day, bestowed his rays of sunlight on all the pores of her skin. And Kalascha Dattavan Khadgam Tasya Charmacha Nirmalam. And Kala, the lord of time, presented a sword, Khadga, and a shining armor. You see, these three weapons, Trishul, Chakra, and Khadga, they are very important, and you'll find them in the hands of Devi and in Shiva and Kali and all these forms. These three weapons are very powerful, and they rank higher than the other weapons. So we'll go into that. So let's go a little bit into this 23rd verse. Samasta Rom Kupeshu. Every pore of the body of the Devi is the sun endows that with rays of sunlight, which is luminescence, which is light, that which reveals. Now, Mahishasura is one who conceals because he keeps us trapped in physical forms. So he conceals, and the luminescence and light it reveals. So every pore of Devi's body is basically light and luminescence, which means knowledge, which reveals. That is the way Devi's body is built up. It's the light of the sun of knowledge. And even in Vedic symbolism, sun, Surya is the symbolism for truth, the sun of truth. So it is knowledge that reveals. So every pore of Devi's body is light, luminescence, knowledge. That is what Surya gives to Devi. And Khadga is basically that which detaches. So Khadga is the sword of discrimination. Discrimination, in other words, Viveka. It is Viveka which enables us to separate the real from the unreal, the eternal from the ephemeral, the truth from the falsehood. That is what Khadga does. It detaches us from that which is unreal, and it basically separates the real and the unreal. That is the job of the Khadga. And you will find very interesting observation, which I have noticed. The Khadga, an eye is painted on the Khadga. Usually you will see an eye painted on the Khadga. Why? Because that eye is the faculty of sight. Discrimination, Viveka, is basically sight, which sees through the falsehood and brings out the truth. That is why you will find in the Khadgas an eye is painted. See how visionary, how subtle is the thinking of the rishis who created these forms. And that means it is the eye of discrimination and discernment. And one more thing that Kala gives is Khadga. Khadgam tasye charmacha nirmala. Mala, as you know, is dirt and impurity. Nirmalam is something that is pure. That is nirmala. That means an armor of purity. That is what Kala endows to Devi. An armor of purity, and the body, every pore of Devi's body, luminescent with light. That is what Surya and Kala, they endow to Devi. And now let's go to the third verse. This is just to cover the Vahana aspect, which Lakshmi Jyoti ji also covered, the lion, Simha. So let's go to this verse. This is verse 28. Himavan Vahanam Simham Ratnani Vividhani cha Dadav Ashunyam Suraya Pana Patram Dhanadipa. This verse is also very subtle. Himavan, the lord of the mountains, he is actually again the father of Haimavati, another aspect of Uma, Devi Uma, gave her a lion and jewels of many kinds. Ratnani Vividhani cha. Lion and jewels of many kinds. And what did Kuber give her? Dhanadipa is Kuber. He, the lord of the wealth, he presented an ever full drinking vessel brimming with wine. So strange. Suraya Panapatra. Sura, as you know, is wine. Suraya Panapatram Dhanadipa. That is what Kuber gives to Devi. Devi is going out to fight with Mahishasura. What sense does this make? Giving her an ever full cup of wine. What sense does it make? That is the subtlety of this symbolism. Now let's decode this verse. You see Simha. Just let us try to understand the Vahana concept. Vahana basically denotes mastery, domination. So when a person is riding a Vahana, it is basically the mastery of the principle that the Vahana represents. So Simha, lion, represents power and strength, immense power and strength. And Devi riding the lion means she has unlimited power and strength at her command. Because lion represents that principle of power and strength. And Devi is so powerful, she can ride a lion. Who can ride a lion? Nobody, except someone like Devi. Because she is the ultimate source, repository of all the Shakti of the universe. So only she can ride a lion. So that is what the Vahana concept represents. Mastery of the principle that the Vahana represents. For instance, Ganesha, he rides the rat, Mushika. Ganesha is Mushika Vahana. Rat basically represents greed and desire. It eats away into everything. So Ganesh riding the rat means he has mastered that principle of greed and desire. That is why Ganesh is Siddhidata. Someone, and he's a Siddha Purush. So one who is Siddha himself, he has to master the principle of greed and desire. That is the meaning of Ganesha's riding a rat. That is how the Vahana principle works. And I'll tell you something very surprising, which I discovered. I don't know how many of you know Kubera. What does he ride? Kubera also has a Vahana. There are two versions. One is he rides a mongoose. Another version is Kuber rides a human being, Nara. Kubera has Naravahana, the only god who rides a Nara. Only god who has man as his Vahana. Why? Because man is enslaved by wealth. Kubera represents wealth. And man, in his lust for wealth, he enslaves. He enslaves himself to wealth. That is why Kubera, representing wealth, rides on a man. A man's life, many people, it is mostly dominated by wealth. Their entire motivation and aspiration is nothing but wealth. That is Kubera riding a man. That is the meaning. It's so subtle and beautiful. The only god who rides a man. Kubera wealth. Anyway, so these are the three verses. And let us talk about this jewels a bit. Ratnani Vividhani cha. This is what Himavan gives along with the lion. Jewels, in another word, is what we desire and what we work for. Again, wealth, one kind of wealth. Now, it is karma phala. The way I have understood it is, it's the reward for our works. Karma phala. We do all kinds of works in this world to achieve, to gain some wealth, which is represented by the jewels, Ratna. And it is the surrender of one's own karma phala to the Devi. To give our karma phala as an arpan to Devi. We give her our karma phala, whatever we strive for. Our giving our jewels to Devi means that surrendering of our karma phala in the hands of the Devi. That is what it means. And the Surapatra, wine. This Ashunyam Suraya Panapatra. That is the words that have been used in the verse. Ashunyam, which means which is ever full, it never becomes empty. Ashunyam Suraya Panapatra, the drinking vessel of wine. Now, wine coming from the Lord of Wealth signifies that endless pleasures that intoxicate our minds, like wine does. When we run after endless pleasures of this world, which wealth brings, then we kind of become intoxicated by a very heady and strong wine. And it is endless, never ending. When we are into that chase is never ending. It goes on and on. Ashunyam Suraya Panapatra. That is what it is. Now, Ubera, he surrenders and he makes, even that is given as an arpan to the Devi. That all these sense pleasures, we don't need Devi. You take all this. Whatever we have been striving for, you take all this. It is all yours. You are the universal Shakti. Unless you are endowed with all these things, you cannot kill an Asura like Mahishasura. So please take. These are ours, but these are ultimately yours. So we give it back. That is what this concept means. And a few words about these Asuras. I told you there are 16 Asuras who are the assistants of Mahishasura. Devi kills them one after the other. All these verses describe the killing of all these Asuras. And finally, Mahishasura comes and he dies in the hands of Devi. And she uses the Trishul to pierce him, and she chops off his head with the Khadga. That is why I chose those three weapons. First, she pierces him with the Trishul, and then she decapitates his head with the Khadga, the Viveka, the sword of Viveka, discrimination. Now, out of those 16, it's a long list. I have chosen a few just to give you an idea. One of the Asuras of, you can say, assistants, or in Hindi as we say, chamchas, one of the chamchas of Mahishasura, his name is Udagra. Udagra means, I will not bow my head. You will find in life there are this category of people exist. I will not bow my head to anything or anyone. I cannot bow my head. So that is Udagra is one kind of Asura. Then one is Mahahanu. He is another Asura. Mahahanu means I am somebody. I am great. That is Mahahanu. That is another Asura. Then another is Parivarit. Very strange name. Parivarit is the name of that Asura. Parivarit basically is attachment to family. What will happen to my family if something happens to me? My family is dependent on me. Their existence is depends on me. I am responsible for them. My family would be destroyed if something happens to me. This is an Asura, Parivarit. This is the name of the Asura. Then one is Andhaka. Andhaka is Moha, delusion. That is why he is blinded by delusion. Then one is Ugravirya. He is also an Asura. Ugravirya is brute physical strength. You will find this category of people. They are so physically strong. They think they are invincible. So that is another Asura. So I just give you some samples, some idea about the Asura. There are 16 of them apart from Mahishasura. So it's a very interesting, story-wise also it's interesting. And if you go into the symbolism, it's absolutely fascinating. And I have been fascinated with this subject all my life. So whatever little bit I knew about it, I have presented. Thank you very much. And thank you to BhāratShakti for giving me this opportunity and my obeisance to Mother Goddess on this holy occasion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Narendra ji. Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I know we have one or two questions in the chat box. We can see if we are almost near the end. Actually, we've exceeded. But you see, when we are talking of the Divine Mother, there is, we go beyond time in that sense.
No time
also.
limit.
Yes, but I'm glad the sequencing of the program worked out in this way, that after all these Asuras that Narendra ji, you've reminded us of, we come back to invoking the Devi again with Biswajita's help, and she's going to give us a musical offering. I think she's going to sing a bhajan titled Durga Amritvani. So with that, we can bring the session to a close. But if there is one or two questions, maybe at the end we can take. So let's first bring the Devi back in our consciousness with these musical offerings. So Biswajita, please.
If possible, please close your eyes and feel the music.
It is fully possible, Biswajita.
Because I am not a good singer. मंगलमय भय मोचिनी दुर्गा सुख के खान, जिसके चरणों की सुधा स्वयं पिए भगवान। दुख नाशक संजीवनी नव दुर्गा का पाठ, जिससे बनता भिक्षुक भी दुनिया का सम्राट। अम्बा दिव्य स्वरूपिणी काय सो प्रकाश, पृथ्वी जिससे ज्योतिर्मय उज्जवल है आकाश। दुर्गा परम सनातनी जग की सृजनहार, आदि भवानी महादेवी सृष्टि का आधार। जय जय दुर्गे माँ, जय जय दुर्गे माँ। सद्मार्ग प्रदर्शनी ज्ञान का ये उपदेश, मन से करता जो मनन उसके कटे कलेश। जो भी विपत्ति कला में करे दुर्गा जाप, पूर्ण मनोकामना भागे दुख संताप। उत्पन्न करता विश्व की शक्ति अपरंपार, इसका अर्चन जो करे भव से उतरे पार। दुर्गा सुको विनाशिनी ममता का है रूप, सती साध्वी संतवती सुख की कला अनूप। जय जय दुर्गे माँ, जय जय दुर्गे माँ। विष्णु ब्रह्मा रुद्र भी दुर्गा के अधीन, बुद्धि विद्या वरदानी सर्व सिद्धि प्रवीण। लाख 84 योनिया से ये मुक्ति दे, महामाया जगदम्बिके जब भी दया करे। दुर्गा दुर्गति नाशिनी सिंह वाहिनी सुखकार, वेद माता ये गायत्री सबकी पालनहार। सदा सुरक्षित भोजन है जिस पर माँ का हाथ, विकट डगरिया पे उसकी कभी न बिगड़े बात। जय जय दुर्गे माँ, जय जय दुर्गे माँ। महागौरी वरदायिनी मैया दुख निदान, शिवदूती ब्रह्मचारिणी करती जग कल्याण। संकट हरणी भगवती की तो माला फेर, चिंता सकल मिटाएगी घड़ी लगे ना देर। पारस चरणन दुर्गा के जुग जुग माथा टेक, सोना लोहे को करे अद्भुत कौतिक देख। भवतारक परमेश्वरी लीला करे अनंत, इसके वंदन भोजन से पापों का हो अंत। जय जय दुर्गे माँ, जय जय दुर्गे माँ। जय जय दुर्गे माँ, जय जय दुर्गे माँ, जय जय दुर्गे माँ, जय जय दुर्गे माँ। धन्यवाद।
ब्यूटीफुल विजय विश्वजीता, बहुत अच्छा लगा।
थैंक यू, थैंक यू।
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's not about being a good singer or not good singer. It's about the bhav, the offering. So thank you so much, Biswajita. It's almost, well, it's a little after 12. But if there is anything,
Any quick comment, questions, anything?
one quick comment. I know this Nitin ji had one very long question, but he's also requested a recording. So yeah, he's already left. So I don't think we need to take that question because it went into various different directions and becomes a little ideological based. But if there is any other from the audience who are still with us, if there's any quick comment or question, maybe we can take one. Savitri ji or Viji is also here. Great. Runalika was also here. So people that have been with us. Or we can.
I want to thank the whole team for a very nice session. It was a bliss. 2.5 hours. I definitely didn't know 2.5 hours went like that. So thank you, Lakshmi Akka, Beloo Ji, Narendra Ji, and the other speaker. Sorry, I didn't get his name. About
Charan
Savitri,
Singh.
he spoke. It was Karan Singh.
Karan Singh ji, yeah.
It was all very good, very nice, refreshing, especially at this time of Navaratri Puja on the 3rd day of Durga. So I felt very, very happy and soul-filling, satisfying. Thank you all.
Thank you, Viji. Thank you. Yes, that was the, if I can use the word intention, to really create a gathering, just to invoke the presence, invoke Mother in this form. So yes, thank you, Runalika. Wonderful session during this Navaratri. So I think we can close at this point. Sadhana ji is with us, Sangeeta ji, Nandini ji. If there's any other quick, Leela ji is also with us. If there's anything, that's fine. But otherwise, we can just, I don't want to end this meeting, but at the same time, we have to end it because there is so much we can go more and more into each of the aspects that were shared, you know, the lines from Savitri, the symbolism, and Lakshmi, your, you know, the gradations of the descent and how Mother Durga fit. Everything is so important.
A lot I wanted to convey was already left out, but then the
Yeah.
paucity of time.
Yes, but
There is
that's the
unending
thing. So
emotion.
maybe we'll do it again at some point. That's the good thing. There is another Navaratri coming soon, few months after. So yeah, we can even take it up from where we stopped and pick it up further. So thank you so much for joining us and for creating this satsang, you know, that invoking Mother's presence and as a small offering at the lotus feet of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. So with that, I wish you all a beautiful day ahead and a beautiful Sunday tomorrow and rest of the week. So thank you so much. We can close here.
Thank you so much, Beloo ji. Namaskar,
Congratulations.
everybody. Thank you.
Congratulations to Renaissance and BhāratShakti for the wonderful work they're doing, bringing forward the essence of Sanatana Dharma. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Grateful to be a part of this work.
Thank you so much.